Hi, I'm Jim Gehring from Brown Tool Auctions, here to talk to you about some of the tools that we have listed in our fall auction on October 30th in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. What I have here is a selection of what are known as gravity inclinometers. Now, the difference between a level and an inclinometer is that a level just tells you if a particular surface is level or not. It's a yes or no answer, or plumb if you're doing a vertical surface. The purpose of an inclinometer is to tell you not just whether it's level or not, but exactly what angle is it at. So an inclinometer will always have a scale so you can tell how many degrees off of level it is. These are all called gravity inclinometers because instead of a bubble, which most modern levels use, they use a hanging pointer that's basically the same thing as a miniature plumb bob in order to show what the angle of the surface is. This first one here is probably the oldest one. This was made by a very interesting guy named Rufus Porter, who was a very prominent inventor and painter. He painted a lot of murals in the Northeast in the early part of the 19th century. And he was also the founder of Scientific American magazine. So he's a very interesting guy. And he developed these around 1840, we think. They are frequently marked patent applied for, but we've never found a patent for them. But they're basically, as you can see, just a hanging pointer in the middle with a scale around the edge. What's interesting about these, is I told you he was an artist, they always have this very elaborate engraving on it, which presumably he did himself, showing a couple of guys using these things to build a wall. Presumably just as advertising, so you can see just how useful these were. Despite this fact, they're pretty rare. They obviously didn't sell very many of them, so they're pretty rare. This is one of a couple of different versions of it. This next inclinometer is actually one of the more common. A lot of these are pretty rare. They didn't sell very well, but there's a couple of them you find a fair number of. And it was patented by a guy named William Mellick and sold out of St. Louis. A lot of them are wooden. In fact, the most common type is wooden. This actually isn't in the auction, but I just brought it along just to show you what the difference was. You can see it's got this, instead of a weighted pointer, it's got a weighted disc, which rotates as you put it at different level, at different angles, and it's got these pointers to read the angle off of. And it's also got a little button here that you can push to lock it in place once it's at the right angle, so then you can read it. As I said, this is the more common version. It's actually not in the auction, but what I really wanted to show you was this one. They also made a very high, and this one is in the auction. They also made a very high-end type of cast iron one, which is far more rare. There are very few of these have survived because they've got these very delicate cast iron castings here that break easily. It had some nice elaborate gold pinstriping. A lot of them also had red pinstriping on them, had the name on the back. But you'll find probably a couple of dozen of these wooden ones for every one of these, we call these mantle clock levels. But again, it's exactly the same mechanism, just fancier and far more rare and collectible. This next one was patented by a gentleman named Oscar Fuller in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but Pittsburgh, Kansas. And it was sold by a company called the Pittsburgh Novelty Level Company. As you can see, hopefully you can see this, there's like a little hanging plumb bob. It's basically just a plumb bob that's hanging in the middle here, which then you read through this little glass window. Now, there are a handful of these around that were actually put into a wooden frame. I didn't have any of those to show you, but this is by far the rarest type because it's designed to be clamped onto a rule. So you would clamp this onto a rule and hold it on the surface that you wanted to measure, and then you just read the angle off this. This is a very, very uncommon type of inclinometer. And the final one I wanted to show you was patented by a gentleman named Richard Frambus in New Jersey. It's one of the more elaborate ones. You've got a kind of a swinging half circle thing, which indicates what the angle is. It's also got a little sliding lock here, so when you get it to the right angle, you can lock it in place so you can read it more easily. And the other thing that was very unusual about these is they had this beveled glass cover. Most of these levels just have a simple piece of glass there. But this one's got a nice beveled cover, presumably to magnify it so that you can read it more easily. These are also very uncommon. There's very few of these around. So these are all, as a general rule, these things didn't sell very well. So except for the Melling, and you'll find a fair number of the wooden Melling, these are pretty uncommon, pretty rare.